Hello, I'm John Coleman from ApocatastasisInstitute, an Institute for the Humanities and Alternative College and High School here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. The purpose of this broadcast is to get into the news on this Saturday, the 17th of January, 2026. We have a new year, and we are joined here by Dr. James Fetzer once again, starting our new year. And Dr. Fetzer and I will go back and forth as we're in the custom of with the news stories. And we're going to hit the ground running here without any further ado, except for one editorial note on my end here. And I think this will be appropriate to our episode. And that is, I have rarely seen neocons as off the chain as they are at this moment with Venezuela, with Iran, with other machinations, Greenland, Iceland, all of this. So with that bit of editorializing, Dr. Fetzer, welcome. I trust you're well and take it away,
sir.
Take it away, sir.
Thank you, John. Yeah, the lunatics are running the asylum without any doubt. And here we maybe have been spared war with Iran, as I'm going to explain, at least for the time being. Sonar 21 reports CIA Mossad opt to spark a color revolution in Iran has failed. I'm very glad. It was very heavily agitated, classic CIA Mossad playbook, but it seems to have fallen flat. CIA Mossad planned to spark a color revolution in Iran, which has attracted global attention, and a tsunami of propaganda pieces portraying the Iranian protests as a massive, unstoppable popular movement has failed. Yes, protests continue in some parts of the country, but Iranian security forces have taken off the gloves and are fighting back. Casualty estimates are all over the board, ranging from hundreds to thousands dead. Iranian officials have announced that the alleged ringleaders of the violent protests will be publicly executed beginning Wednesday. While Trump is now promising to come to the aid of the protesters, the promise appears to be more rhetorical than substantive, according to a report by the Jerusalem Post. U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to assist Iranians who are protesting nationwide against the Islamic Republic regime. Several sources familiar with the details of the discussion held in recent days told the Jerusalem Post on Sunday. Trump has essentially decided to help the protesters in Iran. What he has not yet decided is how and when they set. The spectrum ranges from a military option, namely strikes against regime targets, to cyber support against the regime, to provide Starlink system to help the protesters, a source told the Post. While Trump admin does not believe that the Iranian regime is collapsing, it definitely sees problems and cracks that did not exist a week ago, the source added.
However, the British newspaper, The Telegraph, dampens expectations that immediate military action is on the agenda. Quote, the media reported that officials would on Tuesday give Mr. Trump options for a number of non-lethal measures, including amplifying anti-government criticism online and deploying secretive cyber weapons against Iranian military and civilian sites. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Defense Secretary, and General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, are expected to attend the briefing. The commanders in the region have told officials that they need to, quote, consolidate U.S. military positions and prepare defense, unquote, before carrying out any military strikes against security services responsible for the bloody crackdown on demonstrations. A report in the Washington Post corroborates the Telegraph report that the Trump administration is just starting to weigh courses of action. Quote, options under review, the journal reported, could include deploying cyber weapons against Iranian military and civilian sites, imposing additional economic sanctions on the Iranian government, and launching military strikes. While CIA front groups continue to supply the Western media with reports of large protests in cities such as Meshtad. The reality on the ground is otherwise. Here's a video from Meshtad recorded earlier today, at nighttime in Iran, of pro-regime elements filling the square.
We're not actually watching the video, but continuing. The CIA and Mossad seems to have forgotten that in order to effect a successful regime change, they must have the military and security services under control. Let's assume there were a total of 1 million protesters scattered throughout the cities of Iran. That's still a little more than 1% of the total population of the nation. While many Iranians are angry or disillusioned with the government of President Pezeshkian's mishandling of the Iranian economy, really due to sanctions imposed by the United States, no fault of their own, that does not mean the majority of Iranians are ready to blame the Ayatollah Khamenei.
This is how Iran was able to break up the CIA, MI6, Mossad-directed riots in Iran so quickly. It's now much clearer what Russia has been delivering to Iran with its military transporters in the last few weeks. Starlink jamming systems. The Russian intelligence has broken through the Mossad and CIA plan to initiate massive and violent protests in Iran, stunning the Iranian government, which would be followed by a massive U.S.-Israeli military intervention.
The Iranian government completely blocked the internet and communication with the help of these systems, managed to block Starlink, whose receivers, according to Sky News, had been smuggled inside Iran for years. In this way, Mossad lost communication with a base in Israel, and the organization began to fall apart. Mossad agents began to be hunted down one by one because with the internet completely turned off, Starlink receivers light up like a Christmas tree, identifying them. I've already written Starlink as the most powerful weapon in the hands of the USA and Israel. Through this internet, communication can easily be organized. Drones can be controlled anywhere in the world from a basement in Washington. All Ukrainian communication, for example, takes place via Starlink.
What are the indicators that the U.S. will strike Iran? The U.S. should have at least one carrier task force in the region, at least a couple of squadrons of fighter bombers, and the hardening or evacuation of U.S. military bases in the region. So far, there is no sign of such activity.
U.S. military action against the Iranian regime may start within the next 24 hours. According to Reuters, U.S. military action in Iran may begin within the next 24 hours. U.S. personnel have been advised to leave U.S. military's Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar by Wednesday night. Al Udeid Air Base is the Middle East's largest U.S. military base, housing around 10,000 U.S. troops. Iran says it'll hit U.S. bases in the area if attacked. Reuters says 2 European officials said the military action may be start in the next 24 hours. U.S. diplomats were told to leave. An estimated 2,000 anti-regime protesters were reportedly killed this week by the brutal Islamic regime, get the propaganda emphasis, during the continued protests against the Ayatollah's government. Now, this is a wonderful portrayal of how Iran is prepared and how the situation is shaping up militarily. John.
Have you heard the news that American B-52 bombers just landed in Qatar? It looks like the Middle East is standing on the edge of a massive, historic explosion. Everyone is talking about 0 hour and the start of a devastating, all-out war. Stay with me to find out why Iran has suddenly shut down its entire airspace. It is no longer just rumors. American fuel tankers have anchored right near Iran. Reports indicate that several massive tankers have arrived at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. This means they are prepping fighter jets for very long and heavy combat missions. Even strategic B-52 bombers are sitting on the runway, waiting for the final order. Even stranger, another tanker was flying at a very low altitude towards Iraq today. At the same time, US spy drones are circling like eagles over the Persian Gulf. They have even approached Iranian airspace and are constantly patrolling the borderlines. It feels like they are scanning every single movement, moment by moment, for an attack. The scarier news is that the situation inside the US itself is not normal. 3 nuclear command and control aircraft took to the skies simultaneously over America today. These birds are designed specifically to manage nuclear wars and extreme crisis situations. Their circling in the sky means the Pentagon is preparing itself for the worst scenario. Now, let's see what the Israelis are saying. They believe we reached 0 hour. 0 hour is the moment when diplomacy ends and the shooting finally begins. Intelligence sources say that the United States is scheduled to start this massive operation. Of course, the start might not be with bombs, but with something else entirely. There are many theories, but the most likely is a cyber attack comes first. A paralyzing strike on infrastructure to blind Iran's defense systems completely before the bombs. After that, it will be time for physical war and heavy aerial bombardments. The main goal seems to be eliminating key figures and decapitating the command system. When I say decapitation, I mean a very broad and simultaneous assassination operation. The Americans might want to target the regime's leaders in the very first hours. This is exactly the scenario that many military analysts are currently afraid of happening. There were rumors Tel Aviv shelters opened, but they quickly denied that specific report. But don't think Iran is sitting and watching. They have become intensely active. Iran has entered a security phase called total sovereign quarantine by the military. This status is usually only declared when the threat of assassinating leaders is serious. It means the Iranian intelligence system has also smelled blood in the atmosphere. The first sign of this fear is the flight ban over Jamaran in Tehran. Jamaran is the political beating heart and residence of the leader of the Islamic Republic. It is the central command center, and all war orders are issued from there. Closing the sky over this area means they expect a direct hit on leadership. It is not just Jamaran. All of Tehran is locked down within 50 miles. They have ordered that no civilian aircraft have the right to fly in this zone. Air defense systems are set to the most sensitive mode to shoot anything down. This means the capital of Iran has practically turned into a military war garrison. Mehrabad Airport and Imam Khomeini Airport have canceled flights until further notice is given. Imagine 2 main airports closing down. This is no joke, my friends. Passengers are stranded, but the government's priority is securing the sky against attacks. Any flying object that is not identified will be destroyed immediately by defenses. Now, let's go south. In Bandar Abbas, the situation is just as red. The IRGC Navy headquarters, which controls the Persian Gulf, is now a no-fly zone. This is where commanders plan for closing the Strait of Hormuz during conflict. They know that if war happens, the Gulf is the first naval battlefield. The next sensitive point is Semnan, where Iran's advanced radars are currently stationed. It is said that high-frequency radars for detecting ballistic missiles have been powered on. These radars are tasked with tracking Israeli Jericho missiles while they are in the air. Activating these sites means Iran is expecting a rain of missiles from the enemy. It is interesting to know that all these strange events happened in 24 hours. Of course, they were ready before, but now the alert level has peaked. Iran was checking its infrastructure daily, but now the story is totally different. It seems they have received precise intelligence regarding the probable time of an attack. Our analyst says Iran has entered the terrifying silence before the storm phase. All defense protocols are active and fingers are placed on the triggers of heavy weapons. This silence shows Iran has prepared itself for an all-out war. It is no longer about deterrence, it's about survival and fighting to the last breath. In Iraq, the Americans are not idle either, and suspicious movements are reported. Unknown cargoes are being moved, which are likely support equipment for the drones. The sky of Iraq is full of spy birds looking for their targets. Iraq has always been the backyard of conflicts, and this time is no exception. Rest assured, for now, there is no news of a ground war or infantry. The White House only sent a cryptic message saying God is with our army. A ground invasion of Iranian soil in these conditions is not logical or possible. Modern warfare today is a war of missiles, drones, and precise airstrikes. By putting these puzzle pieces together, we see the situation is moving towards war. We may not know exactly when or how, but the gears are moving. The atmosphere is so inflamed that a small spark can burn everything down. Diplomats have given up hope, and now it's the generals' turn to enter. Israelis are being clever, saying, "We have decided not to act for now." They want to pretend that America is the only party fighting the Islamic Republic. Maybe they want to pull their feet out to pay a lower cost. But we all know that ultimately the fate of Tel Aviv and Washington is linked. But Iran is not fooled by these diplomatic words and media games today. Tehran's decision is firm. If the first missile hits, we will target Israel. It doesn't matter if the attack is from America or anyone else. They want to strike the initial blows so heavily that the enemy is shocked. A confident report from the Mossad network has leaked, and hearing it is interesting. They say Trump gave a serious warning to Netanyahu about regime change in Iran. He said, "If you drag us into this war, the story gets complex." Trump wanted to ensure Israel is ready to pay the heavy costs of battle. Trump has washed his hands of it, saying the responsibility lies with you. War with Iran is not a picnic. It has terrible human and financial costs. Israel must be prepared for its cities to be under the Guard's missile rain. Enduring Iran's retaliatory strikes is not something that can be easily ignored. Whether Trump gave a warning or not, Iran has no choice but to react. An attack on Iranian soil automatically drags Israel into the middle of the mess. The Islamic Republic is forced to show deterrence with force for its own survival. This time is not like previous times, and it will not be a joke. Whether Iran's air defenses can stop the wave of American attacks is unclear. On paper, everything is ready, but the real battlefield has a different story. We must see if Russian and Iranian tech can survive against the West in practice. We will understand the answer to this question only after the first shots start. Friends, we are monitoring this extremely sensitive situation moment by moment for you. Any new news that breaks, I will immediately make a video and publish it. Write your comments. Do you think the war will start tonight or not? Take care of yourselves. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the news.
War was scheduled to start that night, but that Putin intervened, as we'll see in our next report. Russia drew a land in the sand over Trump's threats against Iran. Listen to Mike Adams' report.
So let's talk about Iran. Of course, Trump and Israel and Netanyahu want to completely destroy Iran. And what's been happening lately is that the CIA and Mossad have been infiltrating Iran and providing weapons and coordination for provocateurs to start a bunch of protests in Iran and then to kill people, including killing law enforcement in Iran. And that's been happening over the last week. And of course, it's a completely external force. And the entire reason that Iran's currency has been plunging is because of Western sanctions and also coordinated globalist banking attacks on Iran's currency. So this is all external. And it's all part of a color revolution carried out by Western forces. It's a regime change operation to try to overthrow the leadership of Iran, the Khomeini, or Khomeini, I think that's how you pronounce it, the Ayatollah. And then Israel would control, all the Middle East uncontested, and the gateway to Russia would be controlled by Israel, and Israel would control the Strait of Hormuz and effectively the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Arabia and all the routes and resources, etc. That's what this is all about. So everything you are told about Iran by the West is a lie. Of course it is. Just like everything you were told about Iraq. weapons of mass destruction, yellow cake uranium, or whatever it was, but it was all made up. Weapons of mass destruction. They fabricated all of it then, just like they do now. Only idiots believe anything that Western governments tell them about the Middle East. So what's really happening is just an attempted color revolution overthrow. And Trump was poised to bomb Iran. And the B-2 stealth bombers were already stationed at the Diego Garcia military base there. And also, by the way, Carrier Group has been dispatched to the area. I think it's in the Red Sea right now. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's somewhere around there. And Trump was ready to bomb Iran, and he even tweeted out on his Truth Social, which should just be called Trump Social, tweeted out the people of Iran should overthrow their institutions, overthrow their government, basically is what he's saying. So he's actually calling for an insurrection of a foreign nation, and he's meddling in foreign nations, even though he campaigned on getting us out of such conflicts in the Middle East, and he campaigned on peace. He has, of course, given the finger to his entire base, and he's doing the bidding of Israel. Well, guess what? Russia issued a stern warning to the United States and caused Trump to back off. Trump backed off the attack plans, held a press conference, said that he now realized that Iran wasn't killing as many protesters, which is just a cover story, and that we're not going to attack right now. And then other information came out that the U.S. really couldn't achieve regime change, which is exactly what Scott Ritter has been saying for days, and that the U.S. wasn't really prepared to do this, et cetera, et cetera. That's all a cover story. The real reason is because Russia threatened to nuke Europe and the United States, or strike with Oreshnik missiles that could not be stopped by the United States. So Russia issued a stern warning with a statement that I'll get into here. So the Russian Foreign Ministry issued a public statement, but I also suspect that there was messaging behind the scenes that said the United States will face, quote, disastrous consequences if it engages in fresh aggression towards Iran. And that these disastrous consequences would also spill over into global insecurity. Russia said the situation is dangerously volatile and that it could push the entire region toward wider instability. It also said that the United States has no right to claim that there's civil unrest inside Iran as a justification for military strikes. But of course, that's what the U.S. always does when they want to bomb somebody. They say, "Oh, well, we're gonna free those people by bombing their country." Yeah. And then Russia said that the United States should be under no illusion about the repercussions, saying, quote, "Those who plan to use externally inspired unrest as a pretext for repeating the aggression against Iran committed in June of 2025 must be aware of the disastrous consequences of such actions for the situation in the Middle East and global international security." Meanwhile, Trump tweets out, "Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions. Help is on the way." But Iran itself issued another warning and said, quote, "We will respond powerfully to any kind of attack against us and will not allow anyone to threaten us." And he talked about all the U.S. bases in the region and that any country that assists Washington, D.C., probably including Qatar, would be viewed as legitimate targets. So in my view, here's what's actually happening. Trump has been running around as a crazed bully conqueror, at least for the last few weeks. He's threatening Greenland. He's threatening to militarily invade and conquer Greenland. He invaded and kidnapped the president of Venezuela and is trying to take over Venezuela's resources, oil and minerals, and much more. And now he's threatening to bomb Iran, even though last year he said that we're done bombing Iran and we already destroyed their nuclear program for years to come, and it's done. And basically, he told Netanyahu, we're not going to bomb Iran anymore. We did it. We bombed Fordo. We destroyed their nuclear program. You don't have anything else to worry about. But of course, Trump is entirely controlled by the Zionists. And so the Zionists keep pushing to destroy Iran, along with Senator Flimsy Graham. And so this has been building for a while. Oh, we got to bomb Iran, bomb Iran. And what finally happened, the boiling point was reached where Russia, and I would imagine China behind the scenes, although China is a little more diplomatic, but Russia has drawn a line in the sand and said, we will not allow you to destroy Iran. And if you try to, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, that we, Russia, will destroy you, or we will stop you. And Russia has the means to do that. And so does China. Specifically, Russia can sink U.S. aircraft carriers using Oreshnik missiles. Russia has hypersonic missiles that can also destroy U.S. aircraft carriers. In addition, Russia can strike any target anywhere in the United States of America, including deep underground bunkers, probably the ones under the White House. So even if Trump goes, 10 floors underground or whatever it is, that Oreshnik missiles could reach that far and turn everybody down there into vaporized dust. And Russia is just about at that point.
And then the battle began, the interviewer asks. The security guard. Yes, but it was a massacre. We were hundreds, but we had no chance. They were shooting with such precision and speed. It seemed like each soldier was firing 300 rounds per minute. We couldn't do anything. And your own weapons, didn't they help? No, not at all. Because it wasn't just the weapons. At one point, they launched something. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a very intense sound wave. Suddenly, I felt like my head was exploding from the inside. We all started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground, unable to move. And your comrades, did they manage to resist? No, not at all. Those were 20 men without a single casualty, killed hundreds of us. We had no way to compete with their technology, with their weapons. I swear, I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't even stand up after that sonic weapon or whatever it was. So you think the rest of the region should think twice before confronting the Americans? Without a doubt. I'm sending a warning to anyone who thinks they can fight the United States. They have no idea what they're capable of. After what I saw, I never want to be on the other side of that again. They're not to be messed with.
Let me just say, I had an extensive conversation about this with Dr. Catherine Horton, who's a particle physicist with a PhD from Oxford, who's been in the front of the legal battle against using directed energy weapons that target individuals. And she confirmed that this appears to be the use of electromagnetic pulse weaponry. And in addition, that the soldiers appear to be chipped to make them far more accurate and precise in their targeting and firing. So what we have is really the equivalent of RoboCops, a new class of super soldiers, by virtue of chipping in these high-tech weapons that are going to make future wars analogous to the Terminator scenario, the war with the machines, except it's humans who are made to be more machine-like rather than machines made to be more human-like. John, this is a stunning, absolutely stunning development. So I just encourage anyone who wants to understand what we're up against. Check out the classic film RoboCop from 1987, which was giving us then a vision of the future that now appears to be here.
About 3 years ago, we're recording this in the beginning of 20 and 26. About 3-4 years ago, you might remember this, Dr. Fetz, or perhaps our audience does. There was a tiff between India and China. And it was in the headlines for a hot second, and then it was gone, like so many things. And these Indian troops spoke about being up on the border in the Himalayas, the Maccabeans, and being microwaved. That's the language that they used at the time. This is not too far ago. They were in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they were technically on the border, but it was Badlands. And there was this contention with China, and they spoke all of a sudden feeling hot, though it was the Himalayas and cold. All of a sudden, like a microwave, they began boiling inside. They had to remove their gear just to alleviate it. So these weapons have been around for a hot second, but my goodness, what we just read here is of a whole other caliber in more ways than one.
Yes, bear in mind, microwaves work by cooking from the inside out, So what the soldiers were describing, they were lucky they weren't already dead. Because once your internal organs are fried, it's all over. And this is just astonishing stuff, John, astonishing stuff. So I'm just very pleased. That overview about how Iran was prepared for war, and then Mike Adams' explanation of why it didn't come to pass. That's what I've got for you today.
This reminds me of something that happened with the alleged back down. It sounds like more than alleged of Russia speaking to the United States ambassadors and President Trump. It reminds me almost of when Russia did a similar thing to Barack Obama and his people during the proposed invasion of Syria from the United States. And in the same instance, the Obama people back down. Very interesting to see where Russia will assert itself and where it knows to keep its powder dry.
Well, look what Russia is doing. This is what Trump promised to do for America by putting America first. They're putting Russia first. They're not going willy-nilly into other people's business. They're only asserting themselves when Russian interests are at stake. Unlike Donald Trump, who's wandering around the world and performing all kinds of egregious acts at the behest of Israel. Nothing to do with America. Israel first, sad to say, which is why I am so disappointed in him today.
Great. Well, no shortage of material and no shortage of news stories, however precarious, as we enter this 20 and 26. As I began with my observation, the neocons seem to be completely off the chain, in a way unimaginable, even compared to the Biden administration. And at that time, it seemed they had the run of the house. So time will tell, and stay tuned for this news with the Fetz. Any closing thoughts, Dr. Fetz, or anything to keep an eye out for your various outputs on so many platforms?
Yeah, we only hope that Trump doesn't regress, because if he, because of dementia, which I suspect he's incurring, forgets the Russian warning, all bets are off. So let's hope, with a prayer, that we're past a very treacherous moment in human history, because what was about to be unfurled would have become a catastrophe for humanity. And we have to hope against hope that is not going to repeat and happen all over again.
So to the audience, thank you for joining us for this episode. Iran to war or not to war. And real quick, and this will be down below in the description, Dr. Fetzer's books can be found at moonrockbooks.com, and his voluminous output and the various channels you can find at jameshfetzer.org. When you're done imbibing all of that, head over to ApocatastasisInstitute. And Dr. Fetzer, especially, thank you for your insights.
My great pleasure, John. Thank you.